Hey everybody, this is Amanda Calendar and welcome to the More Sugar Podcast where we are having big conversations. Today I have a special guest, Miss Angel Hollaway. I have been super blessed to have amazing people in my life. What one thing I always talk about my cousin, she left me some pretty amazing people, and Angel is an extension of that family that she left me. She is the sister of a very good friend of my cousins that turned into like my sister, I would say. Our families are pretty close, and when I wrote my book, I talked about losing my nephew, and I realized that I was parenting from a place of fear, and I wanted to have a conversation with someone who had experienced that and to know their feelings, because sometimes it feels like I am a hoverer, but I don't know what to do with those feelings. And so I know that there's somebody out there as well who's probably going through the same thing. So Uh, Angel, take it away. Tell us about Mark, your son Mark.
My son Mark was 14 when he passed away. He was my first child. He passed away from the flu, which was shocking. Um, that year, he did not get a flu shot because doctors were saying that they were letting the kids' immune system fight it off. So, you listen to your doctor. Um, he's a sweet boy, never gave up trouble. Um, I remember it was a Friday when he fell ill, and he my mom called me and was like he had a fever. Didn't think much of it because you don't when your kids get sick. You just feel like, oh, give him some Motrin, Tylenol, tell him to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was okay. Like he was still sick through the weekend, but then Monday it got worse. I took him to his doctor. They just told me give him lots of fluids. Fever was still spiking, coming and going, and then that Tuesday is when it got really bad, and I had to rush him to the ER because he told me he can barely breathe,
Mm.
um, which was shocking because I didn't know how long he wasn't saying much, and he passed away that Wednesday, January 16th, and that
So that was
shattered.
pretty fast, though.
Yeah, he passed real quick. Which I still is crazy because I can go down a rabbit hole and try to read up on it and research like how fast does the flu turn to pneumonia, and yeah.
So
And
so they said that his cause of death was the flu, complicated. What they say
it started
complicated.
out as the flu and then turned to pneumonia quickly. And like I said, I even questioned the doctors as he was sick. How could this happen? And they was just giving me their theories on it. And there's just still a lot of stuff that day I don't talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I think I selectively forgot stuff, but sometimes it comes back out of the blue. And I'm like, it's like my brain is saying, oh, yeah, that happened. Don't forget that. But yeah, so it was shocking. Like I said, I go down a rabbit hole sometimes doing research, looking, reading about it. I mean, I used to, I don't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore, but I used to. And I still don't have an answer.
Yeah. That I thought about Mark last year because these are things that we can't control. Like especially with COVID,
Yeah.
and normally when a kid is sick or when someone is sick, we expect the doctors to know everything. And
Hmm.
for me, that's my fear because I don't know. Somebody should know and be able to tell me. And I remember the flu is really it just attacks you so fast,
Hmm.
your lungs. And so you said from a Friday to a Wednesday.
Yeah. He fell sick, like I said, on a Friday. And then that Monday, it was worse. And I took him to his doctor. because his fever was high. Like I still can feel it when you touch him. And it pretty much wasn't going down. And it was crazy because he was eating that Monday. That Tuesday he wasn't eating. All he wanted was sherbet. I remember that. And that's all he can pretty much take. But he wasn't talking a lot. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was at work and my mom kept, called me and was like, I think you need to come home because he's not, to me, he's not doing good. So what I did was I texted him. And when he wrote me back and said, I can barely breathe, I left work and rushed him to the doctors. Um, he could barely walk into the ER. Like it is weird because it wasn't adding up to me. It was like, it's just the flu, as people say, oh, it's just the flu. Like they said with cold, it's just the flu. And
Right.
there's more to it, you know. And I was puzzled because I'm like, why are they taking x-rays of his chest? Like I had the flu when I was like his age actually. And I remember being sick, but not sick like he was.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came back and said his lungs were full of fluid, I think that's when it hit. And then the look in their face.
So they were trying to hide their fear.
Yes, to keep me calm. And they said to me he has to go to the PICU ICU. And
I see
like I
you.
said, it was slowly. It wasn't clicking, but it was slowly clicking. And I never thought he would pass away.
Right.
I just thought he'll
Of course
probably be in the
not.
hospital for a little while,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then as time went on, I just remember the doctor coming to me and he was like, Mark, from him losing oxygen won't be the same Mark. And I remember thinking, what does he mean? He won't be the same Mark. And then I got it later after I
Yeah.
went down that rabbit hole. And
Your
yep,
sister was with you. Your sister was with you when you took him to the emergency room.
she actually, what I kept, this is another thing. I would not call anyone. Like my mother didn't know until after I think she had to, because I didn't want her up there. Because remember, her cancer was in submission, so they didn't want her up there because
Right.
her system was not strong. And my sister, I didn't call my sister. I didn't call anyone. I was dealing with it actually alone.
Why?
And then I think she came up there, and when she realized where he was, that's when she calls my sister. And then my dad and everybody started calling. And then my dad came up there, and then my brother. They were only two that came up there because, like I said, I didn't want my mom up there because her immune system was at risk.
Why
Um,
did you try to keep that to yourself?
I don't know. I have no idea because I have no idea, Amanda. And I think about that
You have a
because
close family. Let's be
yes,
clear. You
yes,
have a close family, so
and
I don't want anybody
they
to
were
get the
upset with
idea that
me.
you had to deal with that alone. You have
Yes,
a
I
very
kept it
close family.
inside. And they were upset with me. Like I said, when my dad came up, he kind of yelled at me, and my brother, he kind of went in. But at that moment, I was incoherent, and it's just crazy. And then doctors are looking at me like, "How come are you okay? Do you want to put on a mask?" No, I don't.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to put on no mask. I mean, he's sick. Like, who cares? Hopefully I'll get it and he'll get better. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I kept that to myself. And, they asked me that. And I said, I don't know. I just didn't want to talk about it. And I kind of do that when it gets stressful for me. I shut down.
Okay. So not talking about it make it seem like this isn't really happening, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to process it myself before I can even say it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was not processing it.
Your only son, right?
Yep. At the time, yep. My only baby.
And so when you leave the hospital and you have to leave without him,
I
when they
was
when they
numb.
when
So
they
I
tell you that
remember it.
he passed away, and you can't stay there after that, no matter how much we
No.
want to. So when you leave the hospital,
So when I left, I remember one of the nurses, and I still remember what she looks like, but I don't know her name. She said to me, "We're not putting him downstairs. He's going to stay up here with us." That was weird. Like, it was, somebody would be like, "Okay, that's weird," but that put comfort in my heart.
Yeah, because I know a friend of mine. She's a NICU nurse.
Okay.
So those type of nurses are pretty special when they work with kids.
Yes.
They are really, it takes a really special nurse to deal with really sick kids.
Yeah, it does.
So
And
that so
they're
the
all
fact that
great.
she said that to you gave you a little bit of comfort.
It did. And they really did keep him upstairs. I found out later. They really kept him upstairs with them until he was picked up.
Now, I talked to my friend Nakia yesterday. We talked about her cancer and when she got her diagnosis, and we talked about faith. And I said that, as much as I talk about God and I love God, some things just it shakes your faith.
Yeah.
So how do you keep God blameless in all of this? Or did you not?
I didn't like God. I was
Yeah.
done with him. Because I felt like he let me down. Because I was doing all this praying. Even through life, I always did the right thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm like, he's going to make it okay. I was mad at God for a while, Amanda. It was a long time. And so this one day, I was like, and I used to still talk to him mad. And I said to him one day, I was driving home from work, and I was like, "Look, you owe it to me." I was like, "I'm going to talk to you today." Because every day I said, "I'm not talking to you." But every day I wound up talking to him. So I was like, you owe me one. I was like, I can't take it here anymore without Mark, and you know it. So I asked for him not to wake me up. I didn't want to
Mm.
have to take anything and all that. I just didn't want to wake up. I was like, so I felt like, okay, he's going to listen to me. He's going to give me what I want. Why did I wake up the next morning, bright and early, with the sun shining in my face?
He said, "Take that."
Yes. And when I told my friend about this, she cracked up. I slammed my hand on the bed. I was like, God, you can't do nothing right. So, yes, that's how I was talking to him because I just felt like I had nothing to lose. Before it was like, oh no, I wouldn't talk to God like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually helped me. Because like I said, and then it was a long time, months. I wouldn't pray. I would say little things to him in anger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then my mom got sick again. And then I realized, I'm like, he's keeping me here for her. So I was like, I'm going to be here for her. And then it was like, I need him now. I talk junk to him, but I need him.
Right.
So I don't know I did lose it, but I don't know if I really fully lost it. And then as time went on, I still think about it and think, why'd you do that? But it is what it is.
Do you go from blaming him to blaming yourself?
Yes. So I blame myself more so than God. So the reason why I would blame myself is because I'm like, why didn't I push the doctor to give him the shot? But I don't know if that would have saved him. I
Yeah,
have no idea.
vaccines is a tricky it's a tricky what I
Yes.
want to say. It's a tricky line to walk
Yes.
because
So it's
because
crazy, Amanda, because the day of his anniversary, a friend of mine I went to high school with, Donna, she was telling me, because her mom, I'm trying to think now, her mom, I think, passed away 2 days after Mark, but in a different year. Different year.
okay. Okay.
And I don't think she realized what Mark passed away from. She said to me, my mom died when she got the flu shot. And I was like, really? And she goes, yes. She was like, that's what took her out because it made her sick. So
Mm-hmm.
then I thought, you know what? That affects people differently. Everything affects people different. Even
Yeah.
cold
Yeah.
affects someone differently. Um, so it affected Mark differently. The flu affected him differently than it did Makai, my nephew, because he got the
Mm-hmm.
flu same age, and my sister held that from me, and he was in the hospital, but
Mm-hmm.
he's fine, just like
Right.
Jack. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It just affects people differently, and I had to come to terms with that, and I did blame myself for a long time. And I didn't want to go there. That's another reason why I shut down, because it's like I didn't want to think about that, because like on the internet I saw, because Mark was in the paper and on TV, and you could see the comments. Why did I read the comments? And people was like, "Oh, well, this is a teacher to get her son the flu shot."
Yeah. One thing you gotta do is stay out the comments.
Yes, I was like,
I
"What
learned
made
that
me
the
go
hard way
there?"
too, because then you arguing with everybody.
I didn't argue. It's just that it got to me, because it's like this was my fault.
And it's
But
it's so funny how people have the the gall to get on social media and judge a total stranger or argue
exactly.
with total strangers.
Yeah.
Who has I think you have to be like the most miserable person in the world if you don't know nobody's story to get on the internet on Beyonce's internet
Yeah.
and pass judgment on people,
Yeah.
total strangers, and you don't know how your comment will affect their mental health or their mental
Yes,
stability.
exactly. Because I think about that when I see, like, news articles, when you read the news articles and something happens, and I'm like, wow, people really judge
They
a
do.
situation you know nothing about. Like, you know nothing, and they're already making judgment. Um, One of the parents, so when Mark passed away, it was another student that passed away before him that November, but she died of something else. She died of stomach cancer. She was a senior. And her mom was talking to me. We were talking, and we were talking about blame. And she was like, I used to blame myself for Allie. And she said, but she said Allie would come to us and be like, I have a stomach ache. She said, but you don't think, oh, let me rush to the ER, because Allie said her
Yeah.
stomach hurt. You know,
Right.
she said when your son, when he got the fever, of course you're not going to just jump up and run to the ER, because he had a fever. He had fevers before. You gave him Motrin, he felt better, and that was it.
Right. Right.
So hearing her story did help a little bit, because I was like, she's actually right. We didn't do with parents. You don't think to just jump up and run every little thing that they say hurt.
You mentioned the news cameras. Do we know why it was on TV?
I have no idea till today. I looked up and he was on, I believe, Channel 7. His picture, a picture I've never seen before.
And I seen you guys on TV.
Yes, and I was on the cover of Star Ledger at the time.
And I
I guess
seen
that's my
and I
15
think
minutes of fame.
I was like, is that Danielle?
Yeah, there's a picture of me and Kaya on the cover of.
And I think she talked to the reporters.
She
Or was that
did.
you? She did. You were just
Yeah,
basically standing.
yeah.
She
I
was
didn't
just
really.
looking. She looked like she had 2 more minutes left before everybody was going to get cursed out.
Yes,
Because it's so hard to grieve so publicly.
yes, and I was upset, because when I saw it, I was like, it was like an invasion of privacy,
Yeah.
and I was upset, and like family was over. And they was like, why are you upset? He's on TV. And I'm like, I don't care. And I'm like, it's not even fair. No one asked. I'm looking at a picture I've never seen before. So I'm assuming one of the students at his high school gave up the picture. That's what I'm thinking. Because like I said, I never saw it before until that day.
So where does your strength come from to get through that, especially with the cameras? Because I'm either I like to say I'm either a spaghetti either my cheese is on the floor and I'm sprawled out, or either I'm like a pillar and I'm holding everybody up. There's no in between for me. When my brother passed away at one point, I needed a Xanax
Okay.
and I was just laid out on his sofa.
Yeah.
And at another point, I'm like this. making sure my sister-in-law and my nephews are good
Right.
as they move his body around. But how do you get this? Where do your strength come from when your baby is gone?
I don't know if I even had strength. I guess I did because I didn't use any drugs. They wanted to give me something to keep me sedated. I remember saying no, and my doctor was like, "It's too hard." I said, "But if I take it, it'll suppress it." And then I said, "When I want to come off of it, I was like, I have to deal with this later." And she didn't even answer me. She was just looking at me. I said, "You know what? Let me go through it. Let me go through it, and then if I need it, I'll let you know." And
Hmm.
I never touched any drug. Like I thought about it to numb
Yeah,
me, but I never did. I never drank, none of that. I just
you just went.
I just let it go, let it go through me. And then my mom got me into therapy kind of right away. So I'm
Uh-huh.
guessing that helped too.
Hmm.
So I got into therapy right away.
So you did group therapy, or was it just
So
one
I
on
did
one with
both.
the therapist? You did
I did
both.
one on one, and then I went to parent meetings. They call them parent group meetings,
Hmm.
which was another eye opener. Um, I couldn't take that so much. I went a
Because it
couple of
has to be
times.
sad. So in group therapies, the other parents talking about their loss of their kids as well.
Yeah. So when I would go, it was weird because it seemed like the group I was in, Mark was like one of the youngest kids. Most of the other parents, their kids were grown. They died violently. They died from the drug overdose. And that used to just, it was too much. And
So
I'm
you
like,
was like, look, not
and
for
that's
me.
another thing. I'm like, I'm blessed. Even though people say, what? I am blessed. I'm like, my baby slept. Oh, he slept. He left. He slept away. He slipped away. He didn't die in horror.
Hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, Nadia did. And that is just, that has to be
Yeah,
rough on a
that is
parent. I always
comforting.
say that. That's
Yeah.
another grief for a parent because you don't, it's like my child died. Like one mother said, my son died like a dog on the street. She was like, and that plays in my head. And like I said, Mark slept away. So I do feel for parents more when their kids die of violence
Yeah.
because that's more mentally to deal with.
In my book, I talk about how grief is the sadness physically does something to you. Like it is an energy. Grief is an energy, just like happiness is an energy and sadness is energy. So sometimes I will get like a little ache, or when I did get up, I would have a slower walk.
Right.
Did you notice in your grief, or now if you look back, did grief physically change you in any way?
Yes, it did. It's because it's like I hear a lot of mothers say this. It's like that old you was gone, so this is the new you. Um, you're. It's hard to explain. It's like I was a different person. I was more angel. This is not. I feel older than my years. I feel like I've
Mm,
seen more, and that's the way I feel. Like I said, I just feel older. I feel like I see more than my peers. Um, I look at some people and I'm just like, when they complain about, and everybody's problems are their problems, but when they complain about little things, I'm just like, you don't know. Like, you really
right.
don't know.
I do that. I'm glad you said that because I do that too, but I don't want to seem like that. Like comparing problems,
Right.
because I feel like if I say that out loud, then it makes their problems less than to them.
Exact. Yep. And
Because I feel like
Danielle's the one that said that to me because I was complaining about a friend of ours because I'm like, she's always complaining, and her problems is nothing. And Danielle opened my eyes to that. She was like, people's problems are their problems. She was like, you can't dismiss how she feels. And just because you feel like you've been through worse. She was like, I get what you're saying. She was like 100%. She said, but that's the way I look at it. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You were so right.
But still, you feel like nobody in the world has ever felt what you felt.
Right.
There's you feel like that. How could this happen to me? Grief is so personal.
Yeah.
It make it feel like it's a personal attack on you.
Yes. You feel alone.
Aside from therapy, how did you cope, or how do you cope with the bouts of sadness?
So that's another thing my therapist got on me about. So as time went on, before I used to let it out, cry, but I got tired of crying. So I suppressed it. I still do that sometimes. I suppress it because I don't feel like crying. It's exhausting. And one day, literally, as my therapist said, I called her one night crying. It was late. I was out driving.
Oh, you got
And
her that line.
yeah, I called her crying. I had pulled over. I was crying. I remember it was raining. And she was like, where are you? Because she gave me her cell number. And I'm just like, I'm on 22. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm crying. And she was like, yes, you do. And she was like, why do you suppress it? She was like, stop doing that. She was like, you hit a wall now. And now you're a mess. And you're telling me all this stuff that doesn't make sense, which I did, because I was blaming other things than what I needed to blame. And I only get that way, honestly, around his birthday. I don't do that any other time. I get
Mm-hmm.
around like his birthday, and that's a happy time. But
Yeah,
like his death, I'm not as sad. I'm sad. Don't get me wrong. I said that wrong. It's just that I'm more stressed before his birthday. I don't know. His
maybe
birthday is
anxious,
what gets to me.
maybe anxious and not stressed.
Yes, anxiety for no
Mm-hmm.
reason. Sometimes it'll hit out the blue. I'm just like, my heart is racing, and it's only around his birthday that
So,
happens.
so in those therapies, not just with the group therapy, but with your own personal therapy, what is something that you learned about yourself?
I'm stronger than what I thought. I never thought I was a strong person. I'm stronger than what I
Mm,
thought. Um, like I said, I work it out on my own. Not saying that makes you strong, but when I lean on family when I need to, because they're hurting too.
mm-hmm.
Um, I just know that I'm strong because I'm not through it, but it's not as raw because it's been 11 years. It's still
Okay.
there, but not as raw where I would just, break down. I think of more joyous occasions with him more now.
Mm-hmm.
There are times I get sad, but I still think of happier moments. And then I have moments where I don't. Um, I think about him every day. And that's what I learned about myself, that I'm stronger than what I thought I could be.
Do you?
Because when your kid is here, and this is a saying that I can't stand, but that's just me. I can't imagine. And it's like, I couldn't either.
Right? Yeah.
I
Don't you
still
hear when
can't
people say
imagine
that?
sometimes.
Sometimes it's best people just don't say anything. Look, I don't know what. Sometimes it's best y'all don't say anything at all.
Thank you, Amanda. Just hold my hand. Hold our hands,
It's perfectly. That's one message that I always want to give people in times. It's perfectly okay just to not say any. It's perfectly okay
Hmm.
not to say anything at all, and it's perfectly okay to not ask what you need, because they're
Yeah,
gonna. Because when you ask somebody what they need, be prepared for them to tell you what they need,
yeah,
and then you got to be prepared to deliver
yes. And
on
you
what
might
you
can't.
need.
You probably can't deliver it. Um,
So it's
Another thing
okay.
that was said. So I know you heard this too. He's in a better place.
Yeah, that's
Come on. You wouldn't want your loved one in that place. Let's be honest. Being honest,
I don't
you
know
know,
why people. I
I don't
think
know. He's in a better place.
I
Like,
don't know why I feel a rant come. I try not to rant. I try to be more
right?
educational with some people. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah, just don't say
But
that.
I think that it's also our innate need for attention in that moment
Hmm.
to hijack someone else's moment. So you want to feel the people want to feel like they're the hero. So I
Right.
came in and I made Angel feel better, and I swooped in and I did
Right.
this for her and I did that for her, and I was her this and that, and I just
Yeah.
don't understand. Like, I don't want to remember you in my overwhelming sadness if it wasn't something like I want to just say, like, I was in a catatonic state, and I just
Right.
remember her sitting over there in the chair, just nice, looking up to make sure that I was okay.
Right.
So you did mention, like, I know deep sorrow, also you have unspeakable joy, but before I go to that, because I know one of the things that probably brings you joy is um you was blessed enough to become a parent again.
Yeah. To my Jaden. Yep.
How old is Jaden?
Six.
He's 6. And this is what me what where we had so much conversation about, how does losing Mark affect you parenting Jaden?
It was hard. So in the beginning, I was that nut parent that every little
I
thing.
wouldn't say nut.
Jaden's first fever, he was about 3 months old, and he had got his regular immunization shots. And you know what that could do to a baby sometimes. He ran a fever. I remember grabbing his thermometer, but I read it as when Mark's fever was. But it wasn't as bad. His fever actually wasn't that bad. And I ran to the ER, and I was frantic, upset, nauseous. And I ran in the ER, and um, they were saying it was probably from the shots. And I was like, no, I need him to be looked at. I want to make sure, And they took me to the back, and the doctor back there remembered me from Mark, because she came to me, and she was just like, she was like, "Are you Mark's mom?" And she never said his last name, and I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Because I was there," and I was just like, "Oh." She hugged me. She said, "We're going to check on Jaden." She was like, "To make you feel better." And I remember her saying to her, "I know it's crazy, but he ran a fever and I freaked out." She was like, "Don't worry about it." She was like, "Anytime
Mm-hmm.
you feel that way, you bring him to us." And that made me feel good, because I'm just like, I ain't a quack. Um, but then Danielle had another talk with me, because every time he had a fever,
She gotta reel you in.
yeah, she got reeled me in. And she was like, "I understand." Because Mark was like her son.
Yeah,
She was like,
yeah.
"I get it." She was like, "But you can't make him live in fear every time he gets a fever." She was like, "You can't do that." She was like, "If you can, try to relax." Even his dad, like, when I get upset about a fever, he's like trying to be the calm one. He gonna be all right, you know. And he is, I do it less. I still freak out though. Just the other night, he was kind of warm, but he was warm because he was hot. But it's like I felt, I'm like, why is he warm? And then I go to, you know,
I'm touching his armpits and his feet.
yeah, I'm like, is he okay? He's so used to the thermometer. He just, he's like, this lady at it again. But yeah, so I do, in that sense, I do, yeah, I'm more aware of it. Um, just like I was afraid of COVID when it first came out. I told you I went down a rabbit hole with that before it even before we even knew it was here. That
Mm-hmm.
summer, I was kept reading about it and reading about it. And just talking to people about it. And they're like, you're only, it's not going to come here and blah, blah, blah. You're paranoid. But I just remember the part of it was a lung, it attacks the lungs. And, Mark died of pneumonia. And I'm just like, please don't let that come here and get my baby. I didn't even think of me, get my baby.
Yeah.
Um, he did get COVID, Jaden, but he was fine. He was fine.
Do
So,
you believe in angels? For
yes,
example, um, I see Kindle. Kindle passed away when he was 4, and it was 2009.
right,
So every couple of years, I see a kid that's turned into, like, I have a feeling like there's a difference between seeing somebody that looks like him, but I see a kid and I know that's him in the angel form as a
right.
10-year-old, as a 13-year-old. And it's just amazement. And I just walk and it's always a different person someplace else at a different point in time.
Okay,
But our eyes always lock and this kid just looked back to me and smiles. I seen him when I was in New Jersey, and this
okay,
kid was riding his bike and he was riding by. He looked back and he just smiled at me, and I was like, I think that was just Kindle. So I don't
yeah,
know if it's just if it's me in grief and it wanting to be him and
right,
wondering where he would be at this point in his life. But I
okay,
believe in angels, and I seen my grandmother one day. This woman looked
right,
just like my grandmother standing at the bus stop, and well, I live in Virginia Beach because I wouldn't. It was just crazy because I hate to say I wouldn't to say that I wouldn't pull over for elderly lady in Newark, but I would in Virginia Beach is but that's just the case. And
right,
she was standing there with her groceries like she was waiting for the bus, and I offered to give her a ride. She had to think I was a serial killer because
yeah,
no one's getting in the car with a stranger. But I'm thinking like, I took my grandmother everywhere.
right.
Where are your grandkids? So I was just wondering, like, do you see angels? Like, do you think you see without thinking you're crazy? Do you look out the corner of your eye and like, "Ah, I see you, son."
So, yeah, um, I do. That night after Mark passed, but I'm like, I still think, was I sleeping or was I dreaming? So I'm still confused with that. He was standing at the foot of my bed. He wasn't talking to me. He was just standing there. But like I said, I don't know if I was awake or dreaming.
Hmm.
And it was like so real. But like I said, he wasn't talking. And then a couple of times, Makai and Micaiah said that when they were younger, especially Makai, I think at the time he was like 8, 7, 8. And he came to his mother one day and said, Mark is in the kitchen, and she was like, what? And he was like, I saw Mark in the kitchen, and we don't know if he did or not. He could have. Um, Maybe Mark is visiting them. I do know one time, Amanda. So I was out. It was early in the morning. It was still dark out, and I had just had Jaden, and I just went back to work. So he was an infant, and I was leaving out of ShopRite because I needed to stop and get something before I took him to the sitter. Like I said, it was still dark out, and a man started following me to my car while I was holding Jaden. And it's weird because I didn't get scared, and I just felt Mark. So when we walked, Mark and I, when he was alive, I don't know, he always was like on the side of me, on my right hand side, but not walking with me, but kind of behind me always. I don't know. He just always did that. And I used to like catch up. And I felt that. I felt him there. I can't explain it, but I just knew he was there. And the guy, as he followed me, I started getting mad because I'm just like, I'm gonna have to fight him. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to fight a grown man.
with my
So
baby.
yeah. So I threw Jaden in the car, and when I went to turn around, because I'm just like, is he behind me? I kept looking. He was on the other side of my car. I looked up, he was gone, and I kept feeling Mark. It's like he came with me, and I felt him. And like I said, Mark doesn't come to me often. He really
Hmm.
doesn't. It's been years. Um, but when he comes, I know he's there, and he usually comes, I swear, as a protection, because that's so him. to be overly protective. But like I said, yeah, I felt him that day. And like I said, I wasn't scared and I felt protected.
There was another instance. I think I don't know if I told you about it when my brother passed away, and we were all in the hospital as a family. The ambulance had to transport him in, and we're sitting in the private waiting room waiting for the doctor to come to have a conversation with us because the ambulance took him away. So we're thinking like the next thing we're gonna see is a doctor come in and say, hey, you can come and see your brother. And so we, every my sister in law and my brother, my nephew is in the room with some family, and I'm outside the waiting room just pacing back and forth, and I see a lady come. She's like just sweeping the floor and or mopping or whatever. It's just like Bruce Almighty, where he looks and he sees the person, and the next thing you know, the person's gone, and it ended up being, I think it was that Morgan Freeman is God in that movie. And the lady says to me, "I'm sorry for your loss."
Wow.
And I say, "What did you say?" And she never repeated herself. She just kept her head down and kept mopping the floor. And my nephew heard her, and he kind of lost it because for her to say that to us and a doctor formally not come out to say
Right.
to us that your brother has passed away, and it kind of rattled my nephew so bad. There was a big commotion. Of course, his
Yeah.
dad is gone, and so security's coming to check on us, and the doctor's coming, and everybody's trying to calm him down to see what agitated him. And I'm saying to the doctor, no one has came to address my family, but yet some woman just told us that my brother sorry for your loss. And everybody's looking around like, who? What woman? Who said this to
Yeah.
you guys? And we looking around for the person, and she was
She was gone.
gone.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
instances
Do
like
you ever
that where I
think,
believe.
do you ever wonder though why she was sent? Why was she sent and why she was sent to tell you guys before the doctor? Do you ever think about that? Not
Um,
to turn the questions on you, but did you ever
um,
think about that?
I do, and I think it's because the doctors were scared to come out
Okay.
because because security came first because there was a big commotion. It was just
Right.
my nephew, of course, going through his emotions.
Yeah.
And when the doctor came, and they're still busy trying to address with my nephew issues, and I'm like, you have to address my family.
Yeah.
What this lady like is tell me, where's like, is my brother dead? And I just think that that's some of the hardest news that doctors have to deliver to a family. Like if you're not
Yeah.
with your loved one and you know it's their time to go and you just happen to be holding their hand, but if you're not with them and a doctor have to come, that has to be the hardest thing, because I know it's hard for me as a family member to have to deliver that news to other people. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine doctors working in the ER and in whatever situations to have to come deliver the news to the family that their loved one is gone.
Yeah.
I think everything is handled in a way that we don't know benefits us in that moment.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I do. I never had to deliver news like that to anyone. My dad had to do it twice for me. Um, like I said, Danielle told me about my mom, but I was so, had just had Jaden. So I was so high on drugs because they were looking at me like, is she okay? But I was so high on the drugs coming, having a C-section. I think it hit me the next day with my mom. Um, yeah, delivering
But
news
that's
like that.
another without dragging you down that rabbit hole. That's another euphoric, unexplainable situation.
Yeah, she planned that. My mom,
Yeah.
she planned. I believe wholeheartedly that was in her plans. because, and do you believe, Amanda? I swear, our family met when someone, okay, just before someone dies, do you ever think back things they said and
Yes.
you're like, they knew?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my mom. She knew. Um, Things she would say. She was, because Jaden was due in February. She kept saying you're gonna have it in January, and I used to be like, why are you saying that? That's early. Why would you wish that? You know, and I did. Um, but she wanted to be a part. I remember her saying, because she was sick, I want to be in the room with you, in the delivery room. And I said, Mom, we'll see. Because at that time, she could barely stand up
Mm-hmm.
for a length of time. She was so sick. And she was like, I want to, and I know it hurt her because she was always there for her grandkids to be born. And I said, Mom, you're going to be there. We'll probably have to wheel you in the chair or something, but you're going to be there. And that's why I feel like she planned that. I really do.
So
For
did she
her
go in the
to
hospital
exit
like
out
right?
and send
She
him.
she went in the hospital right before you went into labor.
Yep. No, she went in about a week before. She was in there a minute. Um, she went in like a week before, and she was in there, and they wanted to put her in hospice, but I didn't want that. So her doctor kept her there because I wasn't fit to take care of her at home. So he kept her there. Like he loved my mom. They were close. And so he kept her there, and I appreciate that, comfortable and everything. And it was always someone in the room with her. But the day of Jaden's death, birth, and her death, she kept saying, "It's sad," and do this to us, sad, go, go, go. But we wouldn't leave her. And I don't know what happened, but when they induced me, everyone left the room, I guess, to check on me, and she was left alone. And Danielle is the one that found her because
Mm.
it hit Danielle like because she said to my cousin like, who's with mommy?" And I think that they didn't know, and my sister ran downstairs and she was alone, but yeah, she wasn't with us anymore. So she passed away like 9 something. Jaden was born at 11:46, something like that. So a couple of hours later, he was born. He got her stubbornness. But yeah,
That's
that
such
was
a
crazy. And they didn't tell me about her passing until the next morning.
that's such an angelic story.
Yeah, yes. And I remember thinking, it's crazy. I was like, she did that. I swear, I'm like, she did that on purpose. That she did that just to be a
To make
part.
sure he had a safe passage.
Yes, she wanted to meet him first. That's the way I felt. She wanted to see him first.
Because you know so deep sorrow. Because I know deep sorrow, I also know unspeakable joy.
Yeah,
Some days I could be driving in 70-degree weather with my sunroof open and I pass the beach and the waves are there and it's a beautiful day and I'm so happy. Like
yeah,
but on just an hour before a song could come on the radio and I'm boohoo crying.
yeah. That's
It
grief.
yes.
That's grief. You can look at something or remember something. You're in the place, and then you're like, it'll bring you down. It'll bring you down real quick.
For me it's music. And it's some I drive a lot for a living, so I listen to a lot of
Right.
music. And I remember Kayla and I went on a road trip, and she's riding in the car with me, and I'm playing all these slow songs, and she like giving me the side. I like, this ain't our song. And I'm like, if you listen to it, it's some love songs are not actually about love, or if you listen to the beat is very melancholy.
Yeah.
So it's the sadness of most love songs that I connect with
Hmm.
that gives me solace. So it's a place to put the grief. So when I can listen to the song and feel those emotions, but when I get out the car, I leave it right on the track,
Yeah.
right there. So with that being said, what's something that brings you joy? Because there's a spectrum, like
Honestly,
deep sorrow,
like
then you have unspeakable joy.
unspeakable joy is Jaden. Um, he does. He can make me crazy one day, but I love my baby. And I'm like, I look at him and like, I am so blessed to get another chance at parenthood.
Because
And
you
I
thought
always
you did
think that,
something wrong,
yep, I get another chance at it.
and you didn't
And
do anything wrong.
yeah,
You didn't. You did not. You didn't do anything wrong. What? How do you keep Mark's memory alive?
I do speak about it more before I wouldn't talk about how he passed away, just to give people knowledge. Like when I meet new people, like at Jada's school, um, do you know how many kids you got? I never leave Mark out.
Mm-hmm.
Never. I have two. One lives in heaven and one is here. So, saying one lives in heaven, that strikes up a conversation. And they'll say, what did he pass from? And everyone's shocked. What? The flu? And they're like, oh my God, like what? So, yes, he
Mm-hmm.
did. You can die from the flu. When they say that, they really mean that.
Yes.
The whole time during COVID, what used to irk me when people say, "Oh, it's just like the flu," huh? Yeah,
Actually, the flu is worse than COVID.
yeah, it is. It is. Um, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of information on it, but I will inform people, in which I appreciate it because those parents will come to me and say, I didn't look at it like that, and I look at it different now. Like, you know, wow, it is serious. A lot of them did say when their kid got sick, he's like, I thought of you. I thought of Mark. And I was vigilant and, making sure that, they had what they needed and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I
How
do
do
talk
you
about him.
keep constantly
Actually, my
talking?
doctor that delivered Jaden, so when she has her, when she goes to her different doctor seminars and stuff, she told me, she was like, I talk about Mark. And I was like, you do? And she was like, yes, I talk about you and Mark. I was like, wow, I'm honored. She said, and a lot, she said people a lot, they learn a lot about it, um, the flu and everything and
Do you ever see yourself
what can
being like
happen.
an advocate for just parents to give them the the ease to let them know that this is not your fault? Because as parents, everything is our fault.
Yeah. We're going to always think that no matter what nobody says, you know that,
Right,
right? Like,
right.
we're
But
always going to find something, it was our fault.
but sometimes you need somebody to come up and say like, "This isn't your fault."
Yeah. Like that. Now, when he first passed, that was hard for me because I'm just like, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. It would make me sick to think about it. I
Right.
felt horrible. Like, I can't even fix it. Like, I can't even apologize. Like, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was hard to get through. I still have my moments, but then I don't know if I'm saying that it's not my fault. Um,
I don't think he knows. I can tell you it's not your fault.
yeah,
But you just like this, like you've reached a level of there's no end to grief. You're just
no,
at a part in your journey where you're a little more secure
yeah,
in your it's secure in your sorrow,
yeah.
if that makes any sense.
That's like, okay, so when I was going to those parent meetings, you can tell the parents that's been in it for years from the new ones. And I was one of the new ones. Because the new ones look lost, crying, bewildered. They don't know what to do. The ones that's been in it are more, they're sympathetic, of course, but they're more like no emotion. Uh, just kind of like, I'm going to hold your hand. And, this is us. Like one mom, her son died in a motorcycle accident. And I think when I met her, it was already 25 years for her. And
Let me stop you
she
one
said,
minute before that. Just goes to show that grief, that there's no time. 25 years and she still's in therapy.
yep, yep. And she says she has days where it just hits her from out of the blue and she remembers everything that day. She said it feels like that day. And this was like 20, at the time, like I said, it was 25 years for her. So she said, you'll get to a place where you will cry less. She said, but you're going to always cry. You're going to always have those moments, those holidays where you're going to just break down. So I remember my grandmother doing that because I don't know if you know this, but my mother had a brother who passed away. As a matter of fact, he was murdered in 19. I'm gonna tell you the story in a minute. He was murdered the week before I was born, so I never met him. Yes,
So your
and
whole family just ushering people in.
yeah, and like I said, I never met him. Um, and I just remember them talking about my grandmother. But back then things were different. People back then didn't talk about the losses. If you think about it, they were more taboo with it. I'm not going to talk about it. No, you don't bring his name up.
Yeah.
Lonzel was not brought up a lot. It was like we had to ask because we see in the picture now, like, who is that? And from what I remember, my grandmother never talked about him to us. We learned through my mom about her brother. She never would talk about him. And I always wonder, like, how the hell did she do that
How
from
old was
day
he
to
when he
day
died?
to never speak of him?
How old
I'm
was he?
sure she had her moments by herself, but I like to talk about Mark at sometimes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how did my grandmother keep that in and not talk about it?
How
It
old
was
was
like,
he when he passed away?
uh, how old was who?
Your uncle.
He was 26. I believe my mom said he was like 26. So he was young. Um, and like I said, he was killed. They never solved the crime. They don't know who did it till today. And that was in 71. So, everyone passed away not knowing who killed him.
Jeez.
Yep.
How do you imagine 25-year-old Mark?
So I'm going by how he was. I imagine him a chill person. He was always chill. My father said he would never have a heart attack because nothing moved him. Never got excited. Chill, responsible, working, loving his little brother, you know, loving, protective of me. That's how I picture him.
And so now, as time goes on, you would be considered one of the seasoned moms in those groups, or just someone who has a perspective on the loss of a child. So, what advice would you have for a parent, a grieving parent that's just lost a kid?
I've been there to help a parent. Like, I have friends that would call and say, could you speak to her? She lost her child. I'm just like, why are they asking me? Like, I'm still figuring it out myself.
Right.
But
That's a good answer, though. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know. I don't have it figured out.
yeah, I haven't figured it out myself. I have, so in the past, for example, when I spoke to the one young lady on the phone, I just said to her, it's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be ups and downs. I said to her, the first few years is the worst. I said, I'm not going to candy coat it for you and just
Mm-hmm.
go with it. Take it minute by minute. I said, you're going to have to indulge in things you enjoy. Like I used to go to the movies. I just did.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to the movies. Me and my mom. She would never let me leave by myself, and I was cool with it. But yeah, I would always just constantly go to the movies. So movies I didn't even say I wanted to see, but I would go. That just made me feel better. Um, and I would tell them that you try not to say too much because that's what I appreciated when people didn't constantly was in my face like you got to do this, you got to do that. That's annoying. Um, you just don't candy coat it, and I let them know it's going to be hard. You're going to have you're going to be happy one minute, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
smile again because I remember saying, "Am I going to smile again? Like, will I smile again? I can't even picture that." And I did. And you're going to smile again. You're going to feel guilty when you laugh, especially with your kid. Because I felt
Yeah.
guilty that first time I laughed. And I'm like, should I be laughing? Like to myself, like, should I be laughing? Like, is that okay? Or does it look insensitive? But it just, you got to take it minute by minute. And I remember, Amanda, the first time I laughed, I was at work. And I don't even remember what I laughed at. And someone said to me, "Oh, you feel better now." That just killed my vibe. I was like, okay, you killed my vibe. Why can't you just laugh with us? Not so focus on me because I'm laughing. She meant well, but it's like that was not the time to say that. And like I said, and then I had to learn people really don't mean no harm. They really don't. And they don't know what to say. But I just feel like less is more. Like actually, so when Mark passed, I don't know if you noticed, Irv, my sister was upset and she was like, I want to help my sister. She's crying and because he called my Danielle to check on me because he knew how it felt from Kindel.
Mm-hmm.
So she said to him, I want to help her or like I want to do something. He was like, leave her alone. He was like, I know for a fact I wanted to be left alone. He was like, just if she calls, just be there for her. Go lay with her. But don't nag her
Mm-hmm.
or hound her about how she's feeling because already know how she's feeling. You don't want to hear that. And
Right.
when she told me that later on, I was like, yeah, that was the best advice.
Leave him alone.
The best. And your brother gave her that advice. So, yeah, that was the best advice. It's not that it's like, you're not being mean. It's just, you wanted to, it's like I said, I have to process it. I don't need a bunch of talk. Let me think. Let me get through it. And I'll be, it's going to be all right.
I never knew he made that call.
Yep.
Something else, that guy.
Yep. I forgot Kendall passed away before Mark. Because when you just said the date, and I was like, that's right. Because Earth already knew how I felt. Because he used to send me Facebook message, how are you doing? Are you
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
Things like that. If you ever need to talk, just let me know because I know how you feel. And that feels good too. And it's sad because it's like, okay, somebody does understand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Talking to people that don't get it, and there's nothing wrong with it. You can't talk to them about your deepest thoughts because they're not going to understand. They're not.
So the best thing for people to do is be there, but stay in their lane.
Yeah. Because like when I just said to you earlier when we were talking, I wanted God to, I didn't want to wake up. Some people get upset, like, why would you want to kill yourself? That's crazy thinking. That's the way I felt.
That's the way grief works, though. Sometimes you just don't want to.
Yeah.
You
And,
just
and,
want
and a lot of
people.
mothers
People
say,
have to understand when the space you're in when you want the pain to just stop.
right. And then some people don't, and I understand. Just the thought of that is like scary. Like, why would you want to do that? Um, but all mothers that lose a child will say, "I'm not afraid of death anymore." Now, I am in a place where I am not afraid of death, but I'm not ready because I got somebody here that needs me.
Right.
So it's like I'm in two places, you know, and I'm more leaning towards I got to be here for Jaden because he needs me. And I know Mark understands that. Like I'm comfortable with that.
I don't think he
So,
would want you to be there with you with him anyway.
what you say, Amanda?
I don't think he would want you there with him anyway.
Yeah, he would definitely. Even without him, he would want me here. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
because he don't bother me. I know he's at rest because he's like, lady, leave me alone.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you, Angel. It's
no
always good
problem.
talking to you because not because you lost your son, but because you have realistic conversations.
Yeah,
And again, I always go back to we hadn't seen each other in a long time,
yeah.
and when we talked at Rachel Father's repast, and was you there for the whole funeral?
Yes, I saw you talking. Yep.
That's what happens when you ask somebody what they need. When you say what you need,
Yeah,
that's
and you
what.
got, and that happened to you.
And it's not a
You
bad
did
thing.
really good.
I was able to deliver, but I was prepared
Okay,
to
yeah,
give her whatever she needed. And so I asked, "What do you need?"
right.
Okay, you did a welcome address.
You did. Actually, you were a perfect fit. Like I thought that was like that was perfect.
It wasn't planned. Honestly, I always was there.
Really?
No, I knew how much she loved her father. And
Yeah,
so, I don't know, you're not a very much of an Instagram person, but I posted like when my cousin passed away in 2008, and I met Rachel and Danielle at the funeral. And
right.
so when I went home after the services, so you figure 2008 until now is what, about 15 years, 16
Yeah.
years.
2008. It's about 16 years. Yep.
So every day for 16 years, Rachel said good morning to me,
Yeah.
text message.
That's so hard.
And the day that the last message I got was my father died.
Yeah.
And she just hasn't, and I know her, so she hasn't been able to. So I've taken over since then with the good
With good
morning
morning.
message.
Yeah.
And I always said, like, if there's anything you need, because there's never not a time when I didn't look up and she wasn't there. I remember when my
Yeah.
brother did die, and it was in the middle of COVID. Her and Danielle came over to my house, and we outside on the porch in
Yeah.
masks because it's COVID. But I remember them being there,
Yeah.
And so when I
Amanda,
asked her,
I mean, not Amanda. Rachel used to send me good morning texts after Mark passed,
you
and
got to be stand up for your
that's
friends, man. So I was
yeah,
prepared for to do whatever she needed me to do. That's why I asked.
yeah,
And so
yep,
when she said that, I was like, "That's it?
yeah. That's simple, right?
That's simple."
Yeah,
But yeah, I just want to say, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and you sharing your story and sharing Mark's memory with the world. Because sometimes people can be very protective and for lack of a better word, they don't want to share.
yeah.
Uh,
I don't mind talking. Like
they
I
don't want
said,
to
I don't mind
share
talking.
their loved one's memory
Yeah,
with other people.
yeah.
And so I just want to say thank you. This is one conversation that I wanted to have. I never um Kindle I don't talk about too much.
No, you don't.
I'll talk about Irv. I'll talk about Nadia.
The only
I'll
thing
talk
you
about my
would bring up,
parents.
yeah, you don't. Why? You should.
Maybe I will, but that just
You should. I know
I
you were
might.
scared when Jack, because you wanted him to learn how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you should.
Maybe I'll make a podcast and I'll talk about Kindle.
Yeah, he deserve it. He do. And it'll make you feel it, because he was like your son. Because Danielle says that all the time about um, Mark.
Yeah.
She was like me and Amanda. We got that nephew thing in common. And yeah, and you see her post Mark, and
Mm-hmm.
she posts him before me. You know, um, yeah, you should.
I will.
Little Kendall deserves that.
He deserves that. That's good.
He do.
That's a good ending. Thank you, Angel.
Yep.
Have a good night.
You too.
All
Bye
right. Bye
bye.
bye.